Hey guys, Johnny Disc Golf here, back at it again with maybe my favorite person to interview, MVP's own, Mr. James Conrad. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on today, Corey.
Yep, man, it's just good to see all my friends' faces again doing these interviews. I feel like the answer is obvious, but how has the off season been for you?
It's been good. Yeah, obviously kind of busy with the switching of sponsors, but got to have a few down weeks spending time with family around the holidays, and then just hit the road a couple weeks ago, or maybe even a little less, to really start getting in gear for the season that's right around the corner.
Yeah, it's kind of snuck up on me a little bit. I think
Hmm.
it's less than a month till Vegas, but and I'll get to the 2021 season here in a bit. But
All
let's
right.
let's talk about this off season because I I think that there's no one I would imagine switching sponsors less than you. I feel like you're so tied in, or you were so tied in with your discs. It was like part of your brand. Um,
Hmm.
how did this whole thing come together?
Well, it's not just like one thing made me want to switch. It was just kind of an amalgamation, and it was I had started talking with Steve like a couple
Hmm.
of years ago, on and off, and before last season, he had actually offered to like buy me out of my or Innova contract, but I wasn't interested in burning any bridges in
Hmm.
that way or anything like that. So it was something that I've had in my back of my mind for a little while, and um, just yeah, just everything they wanted to work together with me were things that I was looking to work on, and it seemed like it would put me in a better position to kind of be like the top dog at a little bit
Hmm.
smaller company rather than one of the many great players at Innova. Not to say there's not other great players at MVP. There certainly are, but it's just a slightly different position, and I think one that makes me feel a little more valuable and makes me feel a little more important. And so those were that's kind of the meat of what made me want to switch. And I thought it'd be fun, like you said, I was so tied in with certain discs. It was hard for me to really branch out when I knew my T-Bird and my Thunderbird and my
Hmm.
AVR so well. It was like, well, why would I throw anything else? And I think that might have sort of been a limiting factor on my game at times. Like there's a comfort level that comes with throwing discs really well, but then at a certain point, I think it gets to be where you lean on those more often than you should, just
Mm.
because you're so comfortable with them. So yeah, all those reasons kind of made sense for me to switch.
No, totally. I guess why MVP over other companies? Did you have an offer on the plate for every different manufacturer, or did it just feel like this was the natural shift for you?
I'd say it was a little more the latter. I think I could have had probably more conversations with some of the other manufacturers, but I felt like if I'd gone with Discraft, it kind of would have been the same thing as it is with Innova right now,
Hmm.
and then yeah, like a Trilogy brand or Prodigy could have been good options, but everything that MVP was saying was really jiving with what I was looking for, and
Hmm.
then they were able to make a really solid offer, and that pretty much just tied it up for me.
Well, I guess could you speak a little bit to what they were talking about? One of the I don't know, one of the struggles within disc golf is that there's not nobody really wants to talk about what is actually in one of these disc golf contracts. Anybody who switches, it's always the offer they had was just more appealing than the other one. Is there any
Hmm.
specifics within the offer? You don't have to say money signs if that's uncomfortable or anything, but was there any any contract details that just made sense for you?
Yeah, I can't discuss all of it, but I'd say the probably the biggest thing was that they were willing to work together with me to like design a Conrad edition, like kind of my own line of disc.
Mm.
Um, it's hard to say exactly how many that will be, but over the next couple of years, it'll be at least a couple or a few discs that I'll have like input on the designs. I've already gotten to sit down with their engineer Chad
Oh wow.
and have a lot of discussions about like what exactly I like the feel to be in my hand and these kind of things. And just I feel like that opportunity was pretty awesome, and it'll be a really cool way to kind of like co-build my brand and MVP's brands and kind of combine those fan bases and really make the most of it.
No, so cool. And I love seeing that, it's funny how things kind of move and shift with some of the top dogs. This is kind of like that Macbeth, model where you make a shift and then tie in your brand with the new one. My question is, so I guess question number one, how long is this current contract?
The current contract is 2 years. I think both sides of the party are hoping for like a long-term relationship, if everything goes well. That was another bonus, is some of the long-term options they kind of had in mind, possibly if tour life, it's not forever, and some of the other avenues to stay involved in disc golf, like course design, event management, things like that are positions that could grow with MVP,
Okay.
That could be with any company as well, but that's
Sure.
another promising thing.
No, absolutely. I guess we some of my friends yesterday at the course were kind of having the conversation. We tossed around the idea of like, man, maybe they're going to come out with the Conrad line of discs, kind of like what you said. But something that came across our mind is like, what's to stop, or what happens if 2 years up in a world, shoot, the tournament results just aren't where we want them. You have two molds that are coming out with your co-branding. What happens if you guys do part ways? Like, have you had that conversation?
That's a good question. We probably should have dove into that a little further. I don't think, I think the actual molds and everything would obviously stay as MVP property.
Okay.
We'd have to decide if they wanted to like buy out the mold, like the
Sure.
rights to keep using the mold, or vice versa. Or I think we'd have to dive in a little more into the specifics of that. But it's still their mold. It's like their intellectual property,
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah, no, I mean, I feel like, it's a similar thing with like Chris Dickerson and the FX2. The players that have these very specific relationships with discs, I guess I've always been curious, like how far down the line does that go? But it sounds to me that like it is an MVP product. And so, at the end of the day, it kind of is theirs. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
It has a lot of my feedback on like how I want them to make it, but I'm not the one designing the disc, I'm not the engineer. I'm not the one making the disc. Like,
Sure. You mentioned that it's such an awesome feeling, or part of what you wanted from the season and the manufacturer is to be like kind of that top dog, or kind of like, feel as if they're treating you, really well, instead of kind of being in that group of players. What is like, have you felt anything different? Has MVP treated you, have you felt that coming true? Like, have you felt that feeling?
yeah, I'd say I have. I was able to go up to the factory in December, and I felt like I spoke more with the owners there in that first day I was up there than I really ever spoke with Innova's owners in the last 5 years or something. So, yeah, and like I said, just like having that much input on my own line of discs, and yeah, it seems like all across the board they're really stoked to have me, and that makes me stoked to be there.
Cool. I mean, have you talked to any of the players, that were on the team before? I'm thinking like Matt Dollar, Sarah Hokum, Jordan Castro, even Jeff Faze out here in the Bay Area. Did you have any conversations with any of the current team?
Not too much. I've spoken to them in the past. I talked to my buddy Peter McBride, who I'm actually actually visiting this weekend. And yeah, everyone that I've talked to had only good things to say. I didn't hear any people be like, "Oh, watch out for this" or "watch out for that." They'll try to get you in this way, but like nothing at all like that. So,
No, that's great.
Yeah, positive reactions.
Yeah, no, super good, man. And the obvious questions after this kind of stuff are gonna be bag related. You know what I mean? Like, I said it off top, I think some of the fans associate you with your discs more than any other person on tour. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the disc replacements. Okay, I've got 6 discs.
Okay.
I've got 6 discs listed here that I can't envision a world in which you're not throwing, but I'm so excited to hear what you've got lined up. Okay.
Yeah, no doubt.
So number one, greenie. Okay, maybe the most iconic disc I've ever seen thrown. I've filmed the reaction of you acing with it. What putter? What putter in the lineup is gonna do that flippy putter action for you?
I think it'll either be a soft Electron Envy if I can get one pretty beat up. The beginning of the season doesn't have a lot of really wooded courses where you need that super flippy putter shot. So I have some time to really get that to the point. Or a Proxy could be another good option. It's very similar in the hand to an Envy, just a little less stable out of the box. But I got a couple of the discs here, like this soft Electron Envy is feeling good. Brand new, it's already like not nearly as stable as some of the other Envies I've thrown. So I'm already getting like a little hyzer flip out of it or a little drift to the right. I think with a few more, in the next month or two, just I could get one of these nice and beat in to fill that really flippy slot. I also like greenie a lot for like really long putts, like outside of 50 or 60 feet. And so I might be able to, I'm putting with the Ion right now, and that might be able to even get like a lightweight one or something to kind of emulate how flippy greenie was for those long putts. But
yeah, it's a good point. Okay, so you're going Ion as the putter though. That's like what you're rocking right now.
Yeah, I think the first disc that in the Conrad line will be a putter, and we're working to get that one to feel just right for me for putting. So I'll probably switch when that one becomes available. But
gotcha.
Starting out, the Ion feels good. Feels good in my hand. It's putting well.
Cool. Okay, so putters done. T-bird. You were throwing those KJ swirly T-birds. As long as I've been watching you play golf. Is it the Volt? What's that fairway driver of choice nowadays?
Yeah, the Volt is my I think is the closest replacement for my KJ T-birds. It's feels that like stable to overstable fairway driver slot. It can handle pretty much any angle you want to put it on. I can start it on a little Annie and get a nice flex or a slow panning left to right shot. I can hit it flat and it'll go pretty much dead straight with a predictable fade, or it can throw a nice hyzer line if you start it on hyzer.
Nice. So that's kind of your like, is that going to end up being like your all around, some of your go-to shots is probably going to end up being that Volt is my guess.
Yeah, I think so. Without having like some that are kind of beat in, I might be bagging a couple other discs to kind of fill in the edges of that slot. Like I'm liking the Relay a lot as a bit of a less stable fairway driver. It's maybe like a really beat in T-bird, or maybe almost like a Leopard or a TL kind of disc for me. So the slightly less stable versions of those T-birds, that I think that'll be my initial disc for that slot.
Cool. What about the Thundy? Purple Thunderbird, iconic. I've seen you throw it 500,000 times at this point. Is there a disc that you're going to be throwing on those type shots?
So far, I'm liking the Tesla pretty well. It's not quite as the ones I've been throwing are not quite as stable as those Star Thunderbirds were, but that purple one eventually got to where it wasn't. It was pretty neutral, and the Tesla feels like a pretty good drop-in replacement for that. It's hard to say without having played any tournaments yet. Part of what made those discs so valuable to me, like those T-birds and that Thunderbird, were just how many times I'd thrown them in competition. So that's not something you can really just drop in replace.
It's a good point.
Just that confidence to know that I've thrown this hundreds of times on similar shots when it mattered, and being able to trust it in that sense is something that I think will be the hardest part of this switch for me. But that's not to say that I won't learn to trust these really quickly too.
Sure. No, absolutely. MD4, what's your stable mid-range of choice?
So far, I'm really loving the Reactor. It's probably a little less stable than the MD4. It's pretty much, for me, it's pretty much dead straight. I can hit it hard and flat, and I'll just cruise straight. So that's going to be really useful. For slightly more stable, I haven't gotten it in a lot of practice yet with the Pyre, but that one's seeming promising. And then the Deflector has like a really overstable mid-range. So out of those three, I think I never threw like a ton of mid ranges. You know, the MD4 on certain tournaments I throw a lot, but it's like I'd have one MD4 and one rock in my
Yeah.
bag was usually about the extent of my mid range lineup.
That's so wild, man. I mean, yeah, but hey, you made it work, obviously. Firebird. I always remember seeing you throw those, especially that flat top orange luster, just mega beefcake thing. What do you have? Is there like a disc that you've been trusting for those just like incredibly overstable shots?
Those super flexy Firebird shots were always fun.
Yeah.
I got a fireball in my bag right now that seems to be filling that slot pretty well. It's not maybe quite as crazy stable, but it can definitely handle a lot of anhyzer on the release and fight out of it. And yeah, they have quite a few good options for that. I think the servo might be another good one. I'm definitely still learning their whole lineup. It's a lot of discs too.
It's insane. Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah.
Okay, last one is the Wraith, that blue pop top mega distance Wraith. Can I take a guess here? I'm gonna guess Trace. Have you thrown the Trace?
I've thrown the Trace a few times. So far, I'm really digging the Photon for that slot.
Oh, sure.
At least this first year, I'm trying to focus mostly on the overmold varieties, kind of staying away from the streamline. The overmolds are pretty distinctive, you know, and so they were thinking it would be, like, visibility wise, it would be good to see me throwing as much overmold as possible, especially this first year to really embrace the change and to really promote the gyro.
Is that something that was part of, because you're not the first person that is sponsored by MVP that I've heard say that. Was that part of the rub, like with you signing over, like, you know, maybe it wasn't required, but they like, you probably should throw overmold.
Yes and no. They kind of asked if that was something I'd be interested in, would just be in focusing on the gyro, and I said I'd be happy with that. I felt like they have plenty big enough of a lineup between MVP and Axiom to take care of everything I need there.
Cool. Is there any shots this year that you feel like had that, like, I mean, obviously this is all under the like grain of salt that you're just now getting over here, and now we're going to start putting in a ton of work learning your bag and getting all comfortable. So maybe you don't have the best answer for this right now. But is there any shots, or are there any situations that you've actually found your new lineup like more useful, or like, you know, gosh, I just didn't really have a disc that fit this one shot, and now I do?
That's hard to say for sure. I never felt like I was missing too many shots, maybe outside of like a 450-foot sidearm, but I don't think the new discs are gonna bring that one to me. Yeah, I'd say the one disc I've been most impressed with is probably the Reactor. Like I said, I never threw a lot of mid ranges, and part of it was just I don't know, rocks never felt like they came out of my hand the cleanest, and this Reactor's coming out of the hand really clean, and I think I might be leaning a little more on the mid ranges than I have in the past.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to continuing to discover is what kind of new shapes I can start to incorporate, and what things I'll feel comfortable with now that I might not have in the past.
Yeah, and you know, how about the vice versa? You know, is there anything that, like, you know, you're sitting here in, you know, the parking lot of a disc golf course, I believe. Is there any shot that, like, you're like, oh man, I am just not looking forward to having to throw this specific shot without this specific disc? Like, is there any part of your game that you think might struggle a little bit to start the season before you get it dialed in?
Maybe those long jump putts. It's hard to, like, that was never something I necessarily put in like a lot of practice per se. It's not like I had a whole stack of greenies and I'd sit there and practice, you know, 80 footers like 10 in a row. It was just that I've putted that one from all over the place over the last few years so many times that I just had that confidence that I could make it. And I think without, you know, just not having the same amount of reps with like the putters, and especially for those long jump putts, it's something that might not snap back quite as quick, but I'm hoping that it will.
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly think that. So okay, let me ask your perspective on this. Um,
Uh-huh.
one of the coolest parts about the off season is some of these shifts, right? And there's not a ton of them, but do you
Mm-hmm.
have like, are you like chomping at the bit to get out and play now that you have all these new discs to kind of like have a little bit of like fun and exploration with?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely made me more inclined to like go practice field work. I mean, it's always helpful to your game, and it's just kind of the last couple of years, I wouldn't say I did nearly enough of it. And this year, with having so many discs to learn, it makes me like just excited to get out and throw
Hmm.
and throw a whole box full of discs and like, what's this one do if I throw it like this?
Yeah.
And just yeah, when my bag was so dialed and not really changing or evolving the last few years, it was um, it never felt like I needed to go learn like, okay, what's this T-bird going to do if I throw it like that? It's like I already knew, and it just came down to trying to like practice the courses and make sure I was like mentally prepared for tournaments. But
Hmm.
I'd say switching the bag definitely makes me more excited to just go throw frisbees, go throw discs, go and yeah, I'm looking forward to the tournaments to see how they feel in actual competition.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this next season, 2021.
Hmm.
So okay, let's off the top. Is there any events just in particular that you're excited for, looking forward to? I know the beginning of the season, at least the first couple of events, aren't really your cup of tea. Vegas, Memorial, if you're going to go do that. Are there any events that you're really looking forward to, though?
Um, yeah, I'd say the first one that I'm super excited for is Waco.
Mm-hmm.
And then right after Waco, I believe I'm going to fly back to Virginia for the Virginia Team Invitational. It's a huge
Oh,
team
yep.
tournament that goes down in Virginia every year, and my local Virginia team reached out recently asking if I might be able to play. And with it not in the years past, it's always been the same weekend as Waco, and this year it conflicts with Belton, one of the
Mm.
series
Mm-hmm.
Silver Series events. So I felt like that was one that I'd be able to skip to go play the VTI. And I don't think it's 100% confirmed, just because of the pandemic and all. But if it goes down, I'm really excited to go out there. I haven't been able to play a Virginia event in quite a while,
Wow.
so that'll be fun. And then, yeah, I'm excited for the whole season. I'm not hugest fan of the courses that are on like ball golf courses,
Mm-hmm.
but even those will be fun. Yeah,
Yeah, I love it. I totally resonate with like the event you're looking forward to most is your local tourney. Like I know the VTI is
hmm
like epic and like has this huge history to it, so it's got its own thing. But I love the fact that the first thing that comes to mind is like, yeah, flying back home and playing with all my friends. Like,
uh-huh. Yeah, that'll be cool.
so last year, I think we'll probably both agree that it wasn't your best performance on the disc golf course, just from like a cumulative results
Right.
perspective. Is there any concern or worry that like okay, last year a little bit of a down year, whatever, it happens. Then
hmm
you're switching manufacturers. Obviously it's a bit of an unknown.
Right.
It like where's your confidence level right now going into the season? Not to like suggest that it shouldn't be anything but 100%, but there. It's not as if you're coming off you're winning the biggest tournament of the, it's where are you at right now mentally?
Right. I'm feeling good. I feel like, yeah, I would agree that I didn't have one of my better seasons last year. Maybe one of my worst since coming on tour. But it was also just a really really strange year.
Yeah.
I feel like I never felt like my game was feeling weak or anything. I just felt like the tournaments never just they didn't quite feel the same. Not having any spectators, not having a big gap in the middle of the season, and then yeah, to me, the spectators was one of the biggest things last year. Like it
Mm-hmm.
felt weird to make a lead card, and then there'd be like maybe some cameras and a couple spotters, and you'd like I'd make a 50-foot putt, and like no one would clap, and it just never quite felt the same. It felt like
Yeah.
just playing casual rounds, and um, yeah, so that's something that I think will kind of be the same at the beginning of this season. So it's something that I will need to need to get better at, finding that focus level regardless of the situation on the course or around or worldwide, situation. But mentally, I feel like I'm in a good place. I've been trying to do a little more working out. I've been doing a lot of juggling lately, and I feel like that's like a good mental focus exercise. These kind of things could help.
I'm like, my pet theory is that there was no live music events last year. Therefore, that's gonna like take strokes off your game just on a tournament by tournament basis.
Absolutely. Almost all my wins came like immediately after a music festival or something. Just you got to be happy to play well.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've been to a few with you, and I know how important that energy thing is for you. You like happy mind, happy golf. Is there anything that you've maybe thought going into Vegas? Are there any like hard expectations for yourself at that tournament? I imagine you're starting the tour off at Vegas, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So are there any like from a play standpoint, is there any goals, expectations on yourself?
I wouldn't say I've listed any out just yet. I don't think I'll have like a threshold. Like, it's only acceptable if I finish top 10. I think I just want to go out and try to have a really good tournament from the mental standpoint. Try to maintain my focus. Try to stay present for each shot. Realize that each shot matters, and try to putt well. Just try to have a good tournament, and see where that sets me.
Cool. Last kind of topic I want to touch on before I get you out of here. The fans at MVP, or the fans of MVP, I should say, are gyronauts. They're like another level of fandom. How has the reaction been for? I mean, it's been 3 days or whatever since you've announced, but I mean, there's been rumors swirling since you made that trip in December. How's the fan reaction been? Have people been reaching out? How's it been for you?
Yeah, it's been overwhelmingly positive. Like, I've hardly seen anyone like, oh, what is he thinking? That's a terrible idea. I haven't seen anything like that, really. I've definitely had some people reaching out. I've been trying to get on the social media a lot more the last month or so, and it was hard to keep up this weekend. It was like just all kinds of comments and messages all weekend. I was doing my best to get back to people and everything, but it was pretty awesome to see how excited the MVP fan base was. It feels like they're all definitely behind me and stoked to have me, and that's a good feeling.
Cool, man. Well, hey, I'm like so stoked to have you throw an MVP. Not that I didn't like you throwing Innova, but I just love change. You know what I mean? I just think it keeps it fresh and fun. So I appreciate you taking a big leap on this one. Maybe it doesn't seem like a big leap to you, but I think in the community, it's like, wow, that's like big news. Is there anything that you want to say, to the fans or any of the people out there, like rooting for Mr. James Conrad?
Just want to say thank you to you all. It's always fun to feel y'all's support and feel how big of fans you are of me. It definitely makes me feel great, and happy to share those feelings with y'all. Huge thanks to MVP. They definitely stepped up and are making me feel really important, and I feel like they're taking great care of me. So thanks to them as well.
Man, yeah, and thanks to you for coming on and sharing some of your time. Make sure to tell Peter and Jordan I said, hey, I imagine Jordan's out there too. Hope all of them are doing great. And man, seriously, I can't wait to see you from a socially distant ways away out in Vegas here in about a month. So anyway, that's all I got for this interview, guys. If you'd like coverage of all things disc golf, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel.